following podcast is a production of Radio Felician, the voice of Felician University of New Jersey and the home of alternative rock done right. Available via iHeartRadio, TuneIn, the Radio Felician app, and at radiofelician.com.
Radio Felician University.
Welcome to The Felician Lantern, shining a light on everything nursing. A podcast from Felician University in New Jersey, exploring current issues in healthcare, speaking to leaders in the field, and preparing the next generation of nurses. Your hosts are Dr. Daria Wazak and Dr. Elizabeth Van Dyke, Associate Deans of the Felician University School of Nursing.
Welcome to The Felician Lantern. I'm Daria.
And I'm Liz.
Welcome to this episode where we're going to focus on workforce development and training in long-term care. We are privileged and so proud to have our guest with us today, Mr. Phil Scalo. Philip Scalo is the current chairman of the American Healthcare Association, AHCA, having previously served as vice chairman, secretary treasurer, and independent owners representative on the AHCA Board of Governors. Mr. Scalo is the president and chairman of Preferred Care, a provider of senior care services in New Jersey, Maryland, and Michigan, which includes skilled nursing, rehabilitation, assisted living, memory care, hospice, and home care services. Phil Scalo is the founder and chairman of Bartley Healthcare, a senior care company located in Jackson, New Jersey, that has merged with Preferred Care. Mr. Scalo led Bartley from its inception in 1984 to become one of the most highly awarded senior care companies in New Jersey. Mr. Scalo has served as a consultant for long-term care and assisted living operations, financing, and project development. His background is in law, and he has been an attorney and partner in law firms specializing in healthcare law, civil and commercial litigation, financing, construction law, and municipal law. For Blindham Holdings Incorporated, Mr. Scalo served as the director and executive vice president, secretary, and chief legal officer of the U.S. division of this group. In this capacity, Mr. Scalo was responsible for legal matters and operations of an international trade show and business and professional education company, including mergers and acquisitions, governmental relations, and strategic partnerships. And he is one of our board of trustees here at Felician University, along with his wife, Marilyn. Welcome to our podcast.
Well, that's a very long introduction. I guess my my team gave you that.
It's a great introduction.
Well, thank you.
It most certainly is.
Pleasure to join you. My ties to Felician go back many years. I was a elementary school student in Lodi, New Jersey, and my teachers were all Felician nuns. So that's how I got involved with Felician.
Great.
And I years ago, somebody asked me, I said, what is it? I said, I learned very early on, never say no to a nun.
Smart man. Well, thank you so much, Phil, for joining us on the show. We learned recently you were now the chair of the American Healthcare Association since October. So we just wondered if you could just give us a little bit more information about the AHCA and kind of what the organization is focused on and the values and where your role will be moving in at this organization.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the American Healthcare Association is a trade association that represents long-term care and senior living facilities. It's the largest in the country, represents about 15,000 facilities around the country. Main focus is education and lobbying and for its members. One of our big challenges is dealing with some of the CMS and Department of Health and Human Services regulations and requirements. And one of the big issues this year is workforce. Our sector has never fully recovered from the pandemic, with people leaving the sector. And as I know, Felician has an excellent nursing school. Just getting more and more people to get involved in nursing has been a problem. I think over the next 10 years, the projection is that about a third of the RNs in the country will be leaving the workforce. So there's some challenges there. And then at the same time, we see the increase in the population of people 80 to 85, which is the prime demographic that our facility serves. So we're seeing two charts. One is going up, and that's the need for the services, and the other is that's going down as the caregivers that are available to render the service. So it's a very difficult time, for our sector right now. My job is to go around the country and hear all the problems and tell people everything's going to be okay.
Now, I've heard of the silver tsunami, as they call that, right?
Yeah, yes.
The silver.
I've used that phrase. And it's the same tsunami that I guess I was part of as a baby boomer when all the elementary schools and high schools were built back in the 50s and 60s, because it's that generation that now is going to need the services. And I'm sad to say my generation has not been very good at preparing for the future from that perspective. We think we're going to stay young forever. So it's going to be an interesting time.
This is the Felician Lantern, shining a light on everything nursing.
So what kind of opportunities do you see that are emerging from the potential of what you were discussing before as far as workforce? So what are some opportunities, especially from our focus, our perspective from the School of Nursing, being able to help fill in that gap, that need, that role, from your perspective?
Well, obviously, the amount of nurses that are needed just across the healthcare continuum is phenomenal. In our sector, it's we could probably take every nurse that's coming out of nursing school right now and still have a shortage. So wow. The real challenge is to get the nursing students to understand that working in long-term care and senior living is really one of the hands-on and where you're doing the nursing that originally nursing was intended to be. It's not as exciting as being in a hospital, but it's certainly more rewarding in your interaction with the residents and their families. So what we're trying to do is work with programs at universities, whether it's not just nursing, but it's also administrative people, to get the next generation interested in working in our sector. We've had, for instance, in our company, we have some people that literally have been with us when we started the company back in 1985. And needless to say, they're not as young as they used to be. So from our perspective, recruitment and getting the next generation interested in doing the work in this field is one of our biggest challenges, is one of our biggest missions.
And I'm just trying to understand the loss that's been experienced in long-term care a little better. It's certainly no secret that so many workers left long-term care during the pandemic. And I see one of the information sheets, the AHCA website's full of information, and it's really helpful. I see here that 415,000 workers left long-term care during the course of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. What workers were leaving? Were these RNs? Were these unlicensed assistive personnel? What kind of workers were leaving?
It was all across the spectrum. It was RNs, LPNs, certified nurses, aides, food service workers, activities people. And a lot of the sectors, hospitals, medical offices, a lot of those sectors have recovered from the job loss. Latest numbers I saw is that we're still in our sector, still somewhere between 200 and 225,000 openings that have not been recovered since the pandemic. And I think part of that is it was a very, very difficult time, especially in areas that were hit very early on, like New Jersey. Before we had a vaccine, before we had a lot of knowledge about what that virus did and how it was transmitted, and people just burned out. And I think from the perspective of where it's going, they saw other opportunities. Part of the problem right now too is that as the job market got very difficult, wages went up all over, and people can now work at jobs that are maybe less emotionally rewarding, but certainly a lot easier job, and get a comparable pay than they would get working in healthcare. So that's been a challenge. Our competitors are not just other healthcare organizations. It's also retail stores and Burger Kings and things like that. So it's becoming it's a very difficult thing. And although it's a very rewarding field and you get a lot of personal satisfaction in making a difference in people's lives, for some people that's not enough anymore.
As you were saying that, I was thinking of the role of advocacy and how you are, actively lobbying. What are some of the things that you're kind of focused on, the AHCA is focused on in order to kind of help and make up for these workforce issues?
Well, part of the problem we have is that traditionally in this country, and certainly in healthcare, immigration has played a big part in filling a growing need for staffing. And with that being a very charged political issue, the word immigration is not something that politicians are able to deal with. So we've been talking about the need to bring in foreign skilled workers in healthcare. But what the government has done, it's hurting it. It has a rule right now that if you didn't have your visa application in as a nurse or the healthcare professional by, I think it was the end of June of 2022, you will not get an interview until sometime after next year. So the pipeline is pretty much cut off. So that's one of the problems. Another problem is getting funding for workforce development, whether it's supporting university nursing programs and health administration programs, or just LPN and CNA education programs. There just is not sufficient funding for that. And then making the situation worse, there's been a proposal from CMS to add a minimum staffing rule, which would probably double the number of open positions, and they feel there's no technical support for it in the sense that there's no studies that show it's needed at these levels, and they've come up with a one size fits all. And for instance, we have one facility that in particular that is all rehab, and the staffing we have at that is a very high level. But if you have facilities that are more just the skilled nursing or long-term care, staffing level isn't the same. And it also hurts rural facilities. Some of the rules that they have in place would be impossible for some of the rural facilities to comply with, where there's maybe one or two RNs in an entire county. So you have those, and it's going to affect access. And as I said before, as the need increases, as more people, that silver tsunami comes along, what you don't want to do is put more barriers to be able to have access to facilities. And right now, facilities around the country are closing because they can't meet the staffing that they need now. And even in New Jersey, there's access issues because there are a number of facilities that are limiting the admissions they can take because there's not enough staff to adequately take care of the people. So the government needs to sort of wake up and realize that this is a segment of the population that needs support by getting the workforce recruited and developed and educated to be able to serve that need. Because we're a society that doesn't respect its elders and care for its elders as much as some other societies do. And from that perspective, I think we need to take a step back and look at what the generation that has brought us to where we are, good or bad. That generation is going to need to be cared for, and I think it's our obligation to make sure that we get the services and the support to be able to do that. That's part of what our main advocacy is at the American Healthcare Association. We feel we advocate for the residents because if we don't, who will?
You're listening to the Felician Lantern, shining a light on everything nursing.
So at Felician, we have not only the outstanding BSN degree program, but we also have our master's in nursing program, specifically our adult gerontology primary care nurse practitioner program. How does this work, this supply-demand imbalance in regulatory landscape, how does that impact our models of care? Are you using nurse practitioners in these settings?
Nurse practitioners are being used more extensively for a number of reasons. One is, again, how reimbursement goes, because physicians go to medical school and they look at where am I going to get the better education for the most part, and then they look at where am I going to get the better payment as I go forward. And geriatrics is not is an area where they can make a lot of money. So there you have a lot of dedicated people, and the way we have a force multiplier is using nurse practitioners. And we were one of the first companies in New Jersey to actually hire a nurse practitioner, GNP, back in the 80s, and it's now becoming a pretty much standard because they're valuable in the sense that they can do the work in many cases of a physician, but they're also valuable in the leadership they provide to the nursing staff and the model that they set. So it's a very, very important factor, probably more so in our sector than other areas of healthcare.
So I'm thinking of, the emerging technologies that are, it seems like daily, as far as helping with some of these needs within the long-term care society organizations. So do you see technology helping to fill in some? I mean, certainly there is no replacement for actually having a live body and taking care, but have you had any success and seen practices and different technologies coming in there to kind of take some of the burden off of the few workers that are out there anyway?
It does help, but not when you look at it. What's required in our sector is really what's, I guess, from a hospital perspective, would be bedside nursing. It's hands-on, and there's only so much technology you can use. For instance, one time saver is, we can take vitals now, and it goes right into the computer system without somebody having to enter it, so it saves a little time. So it's mostly where technology has helped is in time saving from that perspective, but. We're in a high touch business. And one of the challenges, again, for staffing is so many people work remotely. And I know in New Jersey, if you drive around any time of day, you're hitting traffic and you're saying to yourself, doesn't anybody work anymore? No, they all work from home. So from that perspective, that's another challenge because people have the opportunity to work remotely, even in healthcare, whether it's for an insurance company or a record management company or something like that. So, we are high touch. So technology helps in time savings, and it helps with some of the apparatus, for instance, with moving patients. But other than that, it's not helping a lot. From analytics, it will help, but that's not what the residents see from that perspective. They want that smiling face and that warm touch from somebody that says, I care about you today. And technology is not going to do that for them. Although there are some companies trying to sell robotics, having robots doing certain things in facilities. I'm not a big fan of that. And there is some things with telemedicine that's helping a little bit. Again, it's a time saver and a force multiplier.
I actually have seen the robotic it was a seal, but I know they have a robotic cat, robotic dogs that can prance around organizations.
Well, I travel
for very high prices.
Pet therapy.
Minus the pets.
Therapy dogs and cats. Therapy dogs are a lot better than a little mechanical thing. But
Absolutely.
I travel a lot, and in the airport club that I maybe have access to, I saw this little thing going around where you put your cups in dirty dishes, rather than have somebody do it. So and people just look at it, go by, like, should I stop the thing or something? So I don't know if our country's ready for that yet, but I certainly think it'll be a long time before we have a mechanical aspect of taking care of a resident. At least I hope that's the case.
Nothing like the hands-on caring for certain. And speaking of just nursing and thinking of, when I went to nursing school, a lot of the care that was given in the hospital setting is now the same care that is being given in the long-term care rehab. And I think that might be something that those entering a nursing school aren't aware of, that high-level care, that med-surg floor, is really in these, rehab facilities, long-term care, subacute care, and so much skill goes into working in these types of facilities. So it's almost like a rebranding needs to be there for the younger generation going into it, because again, what we used to do in the hospital setting is now all higher level care, and what we learned on these basic skills and the skill of caring is something that we can't let go. We can't let go of that.
That's a great phrase, the skill of caring. I think it pretty much sums up what it's all about, because you're as a nurse in a rehab unit, you're with somebody somewhere between 15 and 20 days, and you see them come in at a very difficult level for them, and you see them leave with a great smile on their face and thanking you for all you did to get them back, some measure of what their life was like. Those are the kind of things you don't really see in a hospital. I'm just amazed the more I hear about the surgeries that happen. You have a surgery at 10 o'clock and you're out by 3 o'clock, and you're on your own, kind of thing. So, but I think that, from my perspective, I've seen over the years, one of the biggest elements of recuperation is that nurse, CNA that takes care of somebody, or a therapist that takes care of somebody, and the person and the patient feels somebody cares about me. I'm motivated and I'm going to get better. And then you can't appreciate that until you see it. And I think that's something that nursing students probably should see more of in long-term care and rehab facilities, and see what that rewarding thing is, because you truly are able to make a difference every day. And that's one of the great things about our profession. And
can't teach that to a robot, the skill of caring.
No, although all the thing I hear about AI, it's I don't know if you can teach empathy to an AI. But then again, I've spent my entire life being surprised, so we'll see that.
Well, we appreciate your time so much talking with us. I have no doubt we could talk about this and other topics within workforce development and training for hours. But the time has come to conclude our podcast, so I want to take a minute just to thank you for taking time out and speaking with us today. It was a pleasure.
Well, it's a pleasure for me to be able to do this and advocate for our profession. And I want to thank Felician for all the great job you do getting people into the profession. And it's a wonderful school with a wonderful mission. So thank you for all you do.
We'll continue to develop that pipeline.
This podcast has been a production of Radio Felician, the voice of the Franciscan University of New Jersey. The views expressed are solely those of the hosts and guests and are not official statements of Felician University. Visit Radio Felician on the web anytime at radiofelician.com. Want to send an email? Reach out at radiostation@felician.edu. Radio Felician, the Falcon.